Hello everyone, my name is Zed the Beat and welcome back to my Reading Every FNaF book. We are now on to Five Nights at Freddy's, The Fourth Closet. It's the book right here. I've officially finished the first series in the FNaF book series, because there's multiple series, obviously. Original trilogy, and then Tales of the Pizzaplex and Fazbear Frights and whatnot. But we still do have the graphic novels for these books coming up, so get excited for that. But now that I have officially finished the novel series, I can really say that, honestly, they are fantastic books. I said it in the previous two videos for this trilogy, I'm going to say it again. These just genuinely really hold up as solid YA horror mystery novels, even separate from the FNaF world. If you're interested in horror or just like any sort of YA book, like honestly, I can highly recommend this trilogy series. They are phenomenally written. Kira Breed-Risley is just such a fantastic writer. I might genuinely go seek out other stuff that she's done after I've finished reading all the FNaF books. I was kind of correct in my theory as like these books are kind of like the Back to the Future movies. The first one was probably intended to be standalone, whilst the second and third were made with the idea that they were going to be made together, because there's a lot of back and forth play, I feel like, between the second and third book, and there's more callbacks to each other than the first book. The first book almost just feels like an introduction to the madness and the coolness that happens in these other two books. But I genuinely think that The Fourth Closet might be my favorite of the three. So let's hop into the synopsis and I can tell you why I absolutely loved this book. The book takes place about 6 months after The Twisted Ones, as John is suddenly jerked awake after having another nightmare about Charlie's death. As he goes to another day of work on a construction site in the hurricane area, you learn that he's been struggling to stay focused at work, to sleep, to even exist really after Charlie's supposed death, not believing that the girl who walked into the diner 6 months ago is the real Charlie. Later that day, as John is walking in the dark, a car suddenly pulls up next to him and Jessica gets out. She tells John that a bunch of them are having a get-together tomorrow night, including Charlie, and they would all love it if he came. Jessica tries to convince him that this new Charlie is the real Charlie. John says he'll think about it before she drives away. The next day, John goes back to work, running late as usual when he gets fired. Feeling down, he decides to go to the reunion and heads over to Clay's house. Jessica, Marla, Carlton, and Clay are all there. Everyone is happy to see him, and everyone seems to have left Freddy's and Charlie's accident in the past. We learn that Charlie moved out of her dorm and Jessica moved into her own apartment after the accident. Clay pulls him aside, asking if he's ready to see Charlie again, and, realizing he's not, John escapes through the window. As he's heading back to his car, Charlie calls his name. John can't help but notice all the slight differences about her. Although he's trying to believe it is her, finding reasons for these small differences, he can't shake the feeling that it isn't her. Charlie invites him to dinner tomorrow night, and John agrees, quickly driving away. Meanwhile, an ominous figure declares that it is ready, referring to a molten mass of metal vaguely resembling a skeleton lying on a burning hot table. He rips a syringe from the woman's hands, who is revealed to be donning rosy, red cheeks, plunging it into the creature and drawing up molten metal, which is called Remnant. He turns to a broken animatronic bear, putting the molten substance into him. As John rides back home after the party, he hears a strange mechanical sound. He soon locates the sound as coming from Theodore's head, which he took from Charlie's dorm during her move. The next day, John finds Clay standing outside his apartment. He asks John what he knows about Charlie's Aunt Jen, and when he says he doesn't know much, Clay asks him to ask Charlie about her. Clay reveals that he is not ready to let go of the Freddy's case just yet, and he thinks that Charlie is not acting like herself because she is holding something back. Later that night, before going to dinner with Charlie, John stumbles upon a new attraction that's opened up in Hurricane, Circus Baby's Pizza World. As he enters, he can't help but notice all the similarities this restaurant has to Freddy's. At dinner, Charlie can tell John is trying to figure out if she is the real Charlie or not, testing her with questions only they'd know. Charlie tries to convince him that she is the real Charlie, telling him how after that night she had to get away from everything, recover, and leave it all in the past. As the night progresses, Charlie's answers and anecdotes become more and more vague, saying she took John to see Henry and Sammy's grave, but John reveals that he only went to the cemetery, not to their graves. When he asks about where she's been living and Aunt Jen, Charlie starts to avoid the questions altogether. As the date ends and John drives home, he's still unsure about whether she's the real Charlie or some imposter. On the way, John drops into Clay's house, telling him about dinner with Charlie. In turn, Clay reveals to John that children have been going missing in Hurricane again. Clay also reveals that he's been keeping Ella in his study. On his way home, John sees a woman dressed up as a clown. He assumes she's from the new pizza place and drives the rest of the way home. Meanwhile, in his study, Clay hears someone in the house. He barricades the study door, pulling out his gun. Once John gets home, he hears Theodore making more strange sounds, but this time, it sounds like he's trying to say something. Soon, John is able to decipher what he's saying. Shining star, silver reef. He immediately goes back to Clay's house, finding it wrecked, with Clay lying in a pool of blood. Later, John and Jessica go to visit Clay in the hospital, with John telling her everything about the night before. Once they're in Clay's room, he keeps telling them it has to have a maximum range before passing them an envelope full of photos. Every single photo was of Charlie and someone else from that group of friends like Jessica and John. Some photos were even from the diner Charlie and John had the night before. Marla, Carlton, and Charlie are able to make it to the hospital to see Clay, but John and Jessica don't tell them about what Clay's been saying or about the photos. Later that night, John picks up Jessica from her apartment before heading to Shining Star, Silver Reef, which turns out to be an abandoned town. When they arrive, they begin exploring, finding a lone house on a hill with its lights on. When they knock on the door, Aunt Jen is revealed to be living there. After asking her questions about what's going on and why she was at Henry's house the night of Charlie's death, someone knocks on the door. Jen hides the two in a room before answering it, revealing that Charlie had been following them. The room they are in is full of large chests, and after sifting through some of them, John opens one to find the real Charlie lying inside, unconscious. They suddenly hear Aunt Jen scream and some banging noises before everything turns silent. John and Jessica escape out through a window, driving straight back to John's apartment. After making sure Charlie is safe, John goes back to Clay's house to try and figure out what he was talking about at the hospital. Searching through Clay's files, he finds another illusion disc, and when turned on, John notices Ella turn into a little girl. He calls Jessica, telling her to meet him at the library where they can look at the film Clay gave them. Sifting through the film, they notice that Charlie, and Charlie alone, is blurry in every single photo. Zooming further and further into the photos, it is revealed that Charlie is some sort of clown girl, the same girl John saw the night Clay was attacked. They rush back to John's apartment just in time to find the fake Charlie walking up to his door. John slips in to quickly hide the real Charlie. They then let the fake Charlie into the apartment, trying not to reveal what they know as the fake Charlie searches for real Charlie, but to no avail. She invites John to dinner later that night before leaving, just in time for the real Charlie to wake up, but only for a few minutes. John, Jessica, and Carlton set up a sting operation. John goes out to dinner with fake Charlie, with a walkie-talkie always on, while the others listening a few tables away. Fake Charlie interrogated John about why he was at Silver Reef, and John enforces to her that he knows she isn't really Charlie. She leaves shortly after, but Jessica suddenly follows her out, jumping into the boot of her car as she drives away. Jessica is taken to Circus Baby's Pizza World, and when the coast is clear, she goes to the back of the building, trying to find a way in when fake Charlie suddenly appears behind her, knocking her out. Jessica then wakes up in a room with a massive furnace at one end and on a table in the middle with a molten metallic skeleton on it. Circus Baby and William Afton reveal themselves, explaining to Jessica that they took the animatronics from Freddy's and melted them down into one endoskeleton. They are using the molten metal from the creature and injecting it into the Funtime animatronics. William also explains that he is experimenting with the creature and slowly integrating himself with it. Circus Baby then cuts out his kidney, placing it into the endoskeleton. Meanwhile, Charlie suddenly bursts awake as John, Carlton, and Marla walk through the door. Everyone makes sure she is okay, before John shows everyone how Ella transforms into a little girl when an illusion disc is turned on. John suddenly gets an idea. asking Charlie if the earpiece she created for the faces from her college assignment can be rewired, so instead of making them visible to the animatronics, it would make them invisible. She says if it does work, it should be as simple as switching the wires. Carlton then drives to Jessica's apartment, noticing that she's not home, and finds the earpieces in a box of Charlie's stuff that Jessica had been holding on to. He switches the wires in the earpiece before suddenly being attacked by Circus Baby. He slips the earpiece in, and suddenly, he is invisible to her, making for an easy escape back to John's apartment. Meanwhile, Jessica wakes up in a room, finding all 4 of the kids that had gone missing, realizing that they were taken by William Afton for his experiments. Back at John's apartment, Carlton tells them that Jessica is missing before an ad for Circus Baby's Pizza World comes on the TV. It is then that they realize fake Charlie's real face is on the front of the building. They decide to split up. John and Charlie head back to Silver Reef to uncover more about Circus Baby, while Carlton and Marla go to Circus Baby's Pizza World to save Jessica. At Aunt Jen's house, John and Charlie begin searching for clues, eventually finding Henry's suicide note to Jen, as well as schematics for Ella, and multiple larger versions of her before hearing something outside. At Circus Baby's Pizza World, Marla and Carlton break in through the back door. They soon find themselves in the main dining area before making a wrong turn and ending up in a moving mirror maze. After a close encounter with Funtime Freddy, they make it out. At the same time, Funtime Foxy enters the room with the children and Jessica and snatches one up, taking him away. Shortly after, Marla and Carlton turn up to save them all. Carlton agrees to stay and look for the other kid, whilst the others escape. Whilst leaving, the group are attacked by Funtime Foxy. The rest escape as Jessica fends off Foxy, climbing through the playground tubes around the building before making Foxy fall into the ball pits, allowing her to escape. Meanwhile, Carlton continues searching for the missing kid when he is attacked by Funtime Freddy. Running into a room with a Ferris wheel, Carlton tricks Freddy under it as he turns it on, crushing Freddy. Back at Jen's house, Circus Baby has broken in and knocked John out. She then explains to Charlie everything that is to know about both of their pasts. It wasn't Sammy that William took all those years ago, it was Charlie. Sammy and Charlie's mum left Henry as he poured all of his agony into a small doll of hers, the original Ella doll. Henry then invents illusion discs and bigger versions of Ella to create a fabricated version of Charlie, the first being the original doll, then Charlie as a kid, then as a teenager, then, finally, Henry created Circus Baby to be the final Charlie. But Henry was so disillusioned by his creations, he poured all of his anger into Circus Baby, then killed himself. William later took Circus Baby for himself, but his own daughter Elizabeth got scooped up by Circus Baby, and Elizabeth possessed her. After the collapse of Henry's house, she was set free and took on the identity of adult Charlie to help her father in his wicked schemes. Back at Circus Baby's Pizza World, Carlton finds the missing child, but is caught by Funtime Foxy. William then proceeds to inject a syringe of remnant into Carlton, which sends him to an afterlife-like world with the original missing children's spirits, including Michael's. He helps collect drawings to set the children's spirits free, and once he has convinced them that William Afton is not their friend, they all take control of the molten endo and drag itself and William into the burning furnace, killing him once and for all, and finally setting the kids' souls free. Meanwhile, Charlie tries to make a run for it, hiding in a closet, which just so happens to contain the endoskeleton that Henry made to kill himself. Charlie coaxes Elizabeth into the closet, where she activates the endo, killing both of them instantly. John wakes up and finds them both like this. Afterwards, Carlton is in the hospital recovering. Everything has finally been set right. All the animatronics have been destroyed, the souls set free, and William Afton gone for good. John hangs back from the group. Clay approaches him saying he will find Charlie, to which John replies with, "You're not going to find her." Later, John goes back to the cemetery to find Henry's grave, stopping as he feels watched. That's when he sees her. John takes her hand as they walk away from the two gravestones. The first is Henry's. The other reads, "Beloved daughter Charlotte Emily, 1980 to 1983. From the telephone pole above, a crow cawed twice, then launched itself into the sky with a flurry of wings." So I do actually remember getting this book. I remember ordering it online and it arriving like the day or the day after Ultimate Custom Night had just come out. and I read it, and my initial thoughts weren't so good. I specifically remember it not being a very strong book and feeling like they just dumped all the lore that was necessary for the games into the book without really caring about the story. I don't know why I thought that when I first read this book. I was really looking forward to reading the first two books again because I was excited to, reread them, relive them, because I quite enjoyed them when I first read them. But I really wasn't looking forward to the fourth closet. Like I said, initially I didn't like it, and I thought going into it, this is just going to drag and slog and suck. But it didn't. This book is definitely denser on FNaF lore, with introducing stuff like Remnant and Agony and the Funtime animatronics and, William Afton, Charlie being a robot. All that stuff. It is a very dense book, but I think they weave all the plot points with the lore that needs to be in there for the games beautifully. The book really flows as one story, not a book that's trying to just give lore contained in a story, if that makes sense. I think I enjoyed this third book better on a reread for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a lot older than when I first read it. I think as a kid, a book like this, I can tell why I didn't really enjoy it, because it is so dense and very nuanced and has a lot of intricate intertwining storylines. But now that I'm an adult, I think I can appreciate a lot more and I can follow something along like that a lot better. Two, as a community, a lot of these lore revelations from this book are now just kind of common knowledge, so I wasn't constantly having to bring on board new information as I was reading it. I kind of already understood a lot of it. The third is that I already knew Charlie was dead from the get-go, which was making it very interesting reading all these books knowing that Charlie was dead and was actually a robot created by Henry. And I didn't want to mention that in the first two books because I want to keep each book contained in and of itself, especially for people who might be reading along with me and is just watching these videos after reading every book. So I don't want to jump ahead and be from the first book, oh well, Charlie's actually dead, so this and this and this and this. So I want to only mention that now, but it was really interesting, especially in this book, with that knowledge that William actually took Charlie and she's the one who was killed by him, not Sammy, which definitely made for a slightly different perspective and a interesting read. One of the biggest reasons that I think this is the best book in the series, because I really enjoyed the fourth course. I loved it on a reread. And I think it is the best of all three. And it's because Kira has already had two books of not only writing about Freddy's and the animatronics and all the kids running around and being attacked from the first one, but also the more intricate and nuanced storylines and character moments from the second book. And all of that is so beautifully wrapped up in this book. There is a moment where all the kids are kind of running around being chased by the animatronics, but it didn't feel nearly as boring or annoying or a slog to get through than those moments in the first two books, which I really enjoyed and was glad that I enjoyed reading that bit. She also did an absolutely amazing job at really subtly writing the two Charlies differently. Like I said, especially going back and knowing that there were two different Charlies in the story from the beginning, there are very subtle clues that she's not the real Charlie very early on in the book, and that is just so impressive to read with that knowledge that, oh yeah, I can't reveal that it's Charlie from early on, but if you know, then you'll be able to pick out on the little hints that I've put in there, and that's really cool. I love that kind of attention to detail that Kira had in writing this book. I actually kind of wish I could reread this book for the first time again, because this is a book where once you've already read it, if you read it again, it does take on a whole new perspective because you already know the big twists and turns, which are so well done. And I love the more mystery detective dynamic of this book, of the gang finding out that Ella turns into a little girl, John realizing it's Charlie, Charlie realizing it's herself, learning how Circus Baby becomes Charlie, Henry's whole suicide note. Initially when I was writing the synopsis, I wanted to include that whole note or even snippets of it into the synopsis, but I just couldn't cut it down in a way to be as effective. So if you want to, even if you don't want to read the books, see if you can find Henry's suicide note that's in this book. It is so beautiful and so well written to just give those little hints as to what's going on in the story. It all adds up beautifully to this epic twist of, getting the pieces. If you can figure it out, well done. But if you don't, it's still a massive reveal at the end. And Kira likes it. It's just so well written. Everything is so planned and thought out and well executed in this book. I absolutely love it. Like how Springtrap in the end of the second book said, I didn't take Sammy. That's all paid off in this book, obviously, because we find out that he didn't. It was Charlie that he took. everything from the second book is paid off in this third book, and every plot point and little detail and nuance and subtlety and hints and lore all reach up to this epic final conclusion that's just absolutely perfectly wrapped up in a neat little bow. Fucking, I wouldn't change a single word in this book. Absolutely killed the ending, and that's why I think this is my favorite book of the three. I still can't get over how I quite vividly remember not enjoying this book when I first read it. Another amazing thing about this book is Kira continues to work on the characters. I don't think there's as much character work as from the second book, but there is still a lot of really cool character work. I think she's done a great job at bringing back Marla and Carlton into it, and then making them also more fully fleshed out rounded characters. I think it was a good idea leaving out Lamar. He really didn't introduce anything into the first book, and I think if Hannah brought it back in, it just wouldn't have worked. So I think it was a very wise decision cutting out Lamar from this book. But that final scene when they're all in the hospital and Carlton is waking up and is getting better, you really get to look at how from the first book it went from a bunch of teenagers getting together for their friend's funeral, and they've now grown into these adults, these real people. It is a very satisfying character arc and journey all these characters go through, and of course, once again, incredibly well written. Because this just can't be an absolutely glowing review, I mean, a little bit of the end beat where they're all being chased by animatronics does drag on and is a little tedious, like a little bit, but it's like, it's such a small amount. I just got to give a little bit of criticism to this absolutely goated perfect book. I don't know what to say. It was so well written. I really did enjoy this book. If you're going to read any of the FNaF books, read the Fourth Closet. You got to read the Fourth Closet. I would highly recommend, as a FNaF fan, give these books a go, because I really do enjoy them, and they are such an interesting take on the characters of the FNaF world and introduce some very fun lore. And it's not that much of a commitment. It's 3 books. So I would highly recommend checking them out. The ending. I love how open that ending is. I mean, the woman, her, that is mentioned, it's Charlie. It's so obviously Charlie. But it is never explicitly said, and never explicitly said how she became alive again. But I just love the idea that John, took her home and learned robotics and fixed her up, or someone else did. Who knows? Who actually knows? I mean, at the end of the day, they're robots. There is a very good chance that Charlie can live again. And I just love the open-endedness. And the final line of my synopsis was the final line of the book, because it feels so beautiful and so finite. And this ending is the only ending I think in FNaF that wraps up beautiful, besides Henry's monologue in FNaF 6. So there we go. That was the Fourth Closet done and dusted. That is officially the end of the trilogy of books. We still have the graphic novels, but I gotta say, I really enjoyed these books, and if the quality is up to this standard for most of the series, I think I'm gonna have a real hoot getting through all of these FNaF books. Thank you all so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you do enjoy these videos. There will be more FNaF book reviews in the future, and more me 100%ing other FNaF games. It's a big journey, but we are getting through it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Goodbye.